Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live with Mel. This episode is brought to you by Yellow Cab Company of DC. If you're looking to avoid rideshare prices, then check out the Yellow Cab Company of DC when you are in the nation's capital. The first rounds of negotiations have ended between Ukraine and Russia. Now, delegates from both Ukraine and Russia went to Belarus in order to negotiate what could be done. Now, it was very clear what Ukraine wanted. Ukraine wanted an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops. Going into this negotiation, it was unclear what Russia was requesting while the two countries spoke. Now, for the past several days, Ukraine has been under fire by Russian troops. Russia has essentially launched the biggest landmass war since World War II. On February 23rd, Russia decided to start bombing Ukraine, and it has put many countries on edge. Now, many people were expecting Russia to go ahead and begin a war with Ukraine, and Putin went ahead and did this. Now, in retaliation to Putin invading Ukraine, the West, including UK, the United States, the European Union, has put heavy sanctions on Russia. Now, the Russian people are feeling these sanctions. It has hit their economy and has essentially crippled their economy. And because the sanctions have crippled the Russian economy, many people are hoping that these sanctions would allow the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine to go smoothly. But while some people were very hopeful that negotiations would end well, many world leaders, including and specifically Ukraine leaders, did not have much hope in the negotiations. Again, it's not entirely clear what Russia wants out of these negotiations. Now, the negotiations did end a few hours ago. And with the negotiations ending, the delegates that spoke in Belarus, so the Ukrainian delegates and the Russian delegates who spoke, now went back to the respected world leaders, so the Ukrainian president and Putin, in order to discuss what was happening. Now, the one good sign about the negotiations that happened in Belarus is that both sides were open to having more talks. So they're open to speaking again about what is going on. However, while the negotiations were happening, while the talks were happening, Russia continued to bomb Ukraine even as the delegates were speaking. Now, right now, Ukraine, it is in a very delicate space. There are many civilians that have died, and while people are dying, and while there is over 500,000 refugees fleeing Ukraine at the moment, the Ukrainian troops have been putting on a tremendous effort in fighting back against the Russian. And a lot of intel that is coming in is that the Russian troops, Putin included, did not expect Ukraine to fight back in the manner that they did. Russian troops, Russian leaders, Putin included, expected Ukraine to fall and crumble almost immediately. However, Ukrainian troops are fighting back, and they are holding their ground at the moment, pushing Russian troops back. Now, one of the things that they do have, one of the aids that the Ukrainian troops do have, is the lethal aid and the financial aid that they are receiving from the Western world. While the Western world is not keen on putting boots on the ground at the moment, they are providing Ukraine with different types of aids in order to allow them to continue fighting back against the Russian troops. And the majority of the world seems to be against Putin at the moment, with many many countries putting sanctions on Russia. Now, one of the biggest sanctions that they put is blocking some of the Russian banks from the SWIFT system, which will definitely affect the Russian economy more than a lot of the other sanctions. But let's go ahead and go to the comments. So Wade says, Putin and Russia as a whole is a laughing stock right now. That's also a bad thing. As Putin feelings get hurt, he might start pushing buttons. Wade also says, I say that Ukraine pushes Russia back, take a couple border Russian towns, and raise flags that Putin can see that says, go fuck yourself. Now, while Ukraine is fighting back, while they're doing a good job at holding Russian troops back, I don't think Wade, as Wade stated here, I don't think they have the military ability to push in to Russian border towns and raise flags, but they are in a position at the moment where they are definitely fighting back, they're pushing back, and they're doing what they can to defend their country. Again, there are many refugees leaving at the moment. There are many Ukrainians who are sheltering in place. They're using subway systems to shelter in place, keeping in their homes, but they are doing a good job fighting against the Russian troops. And again, many world leaders, many countries, including Russia, did not believe that Ukraine had the ability to push back the way that they did. Now, again, the two countries met today. The two delegates came together to speak, and the negotiations did last hours. While many people do not believe the negotiations are going to go anywhere, many people do see this as a good sign. Now, a Ukrainian citizen came out and made this statement. I sit and pray for these negotiations to end successfully so that they reach an agreement to end the slaughter and so there's no more war. But one of the things that people were really looking at is who was sent to the negotiations and how seriously the countries were actually taking the negotiation based on who they sent. So Ukraine sent the defense minister and other top officials. However, Russia sent the advisor on culture. Again, so Putin, instead of sending a defense minister or top officials, decided to send his advisor on culture. Now, because of this, many people do not believe that Russia is taking the negotiations seriously, and he's only doing this to show face in order to show that he was open to talking. But because of who he sent, because he sent the advisor on culture, many people do not believe that these negotiations are going to go anywhere, that Putin is not taking it seriously, and he just needs to show the world that he was open for talks as he continues to bomb and invade Ukraine. Again, at this moment, Putin has declared war on Ukraine, and Ukraine is doing what it can to push back. Now, one of the things that Ukraine is trying to do at the moment is Ukraine is trying to join the European Union. Now, this, with Ukraine joining the European Union, that would be another slap in the face to Putin, showing that Ukraine is definitely aligning itself with Europeans, with Western Europeans, with the Western world, and with Western ideologies. One of the reasons why Putin is invading Ukraine at the moment is because he believes, and again, he said this himself, that they share a culture, that they are not different, that Russia and Ukraine are essentially one and the same. He wants Ukraine to go back to the Soviet era. He wants to reabsorb Ukraine. However, Ukraine is stepping further and further away from Russia and Russian ideology and Soviet ideology. And this is one of the things that has frustrated and made Putin angry, and one of the reasons why he did invade Ukraine in the first place. Now, while this could aggravate and upset Putin even more, Ukraine has made it clear that they want to join the European Union and put themselves in alignment with Western Europe's ideology, and also show that they are allies with the Western world. Now, with Ukraine's attempt to join the EU, that could allow themselves to have more Western European nations come to their aid. Now, the problem is usually when you join the EU or attempt to join the EU, the process could actually take years. The process can take a long time. But at this moment, Ukraine is trying to join the European Union in a manner where they could join it almost immediately. And while they want to, it does look as though there are European countries and European delegates who do agree with allowing Ukraine to join with this new process that would allow them to almost essentially join immediately. Now, again, this would upset Putin even more. But at this time, Ukraine needs allies. They need allies, they need treaties, and they need countries from the Western world who are going to step up and help them in any way they can. And the more unions that they join, if they join the European Union, it allows them to get more help from the West. Now let's go ahead and go to the comments. So Amanda says, we will need boots on the ground to help eventually. And I completely 100% agree with you, Amanda. I think eventually we're going to see the Western world put boots on the ground, but they are trying to take it slowly because once the Western world puts boots on the ground, we will officially be in a world war. The moment that America put boots on the ground against Russia, that is going to be the two of the biggest armies, two of the biggest militaries in the world fighting against each other. And people, countries, world leaders will have to choose sides. So I do believe, Amanda, that we are heading in that direction. However, it is going to take time. Wade says, stall tactics on Putin's end. I do agree that it is stall tactics. And then Amanda says, wouldn't Ukraine joining the EU, although it's something I want, make Putin more angry? It would make Putin more angry. It would make him want to retaliate more, but it would give Ukraine the ability to call in more allies, the ability to have boots on the ground, the ability to essentially align itself officially with the Western world. Because at this moment, the Ukraine is aligned with the Western world and the Western world's ideology. However, they want it officially. They essentially want it on paper. Now, when we look at the Ukraine joining the Western world, President Zelensky called on Monday for this to happen. He says, we asked the European Union for Ukraine's immediate ascension via a new special procedure. Our goal is to be together with all Europeans and most importantly, to be on equal footing. I'm sure it's fair. I'm sure it's possible. Now, again, while this is happening, this would be a completely new procedure if Ukraine does use this new process in order to join the European Union. Now, while this is happening, the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, stated on Sunday that the bloc wants Ukraine to join. They are one of us and we want them in. Ukraine is still not an official candidate for EU accession talks, however. But it does look as though many European leaders, EU leaders, do want Ukraine to be a member of the EU, and it would strengthen their position with the Western world, and it would also allow the Western world to come in to help Ukraine even more. But again, many people are talking about this could potentially make Putin more angry, like Amanda stated. Now, while negotiations are happening, President Putin has been speaking to other world leaders. The other day, Putin had a 90-minute call with French President Macron, and they were discussing what was going on. He has also spoken to leaders in Israel, Armenia, and other nations as well. It seems as though nations are reaching out to Putin to stop him before this turns into a world war. Now, it looks as though countries across the globe, specifically in the Western world, are still trying to handle this with diplomacy in order to stop it from turning into an all-out global war, an all-out global conflict, which no nation besides Russia seems to want to enter into. However, with the direction that Putin is going, with Putin's continuous bombing and attack in Ukraine, it looks as though a global conflict, a world war, could possibly be around the corner. Now, I do not like being an alarmist, but with Putin continuing to do what he's doing, with Belarus looking as though it may enter into the war to fight with Russia, a global conflict, a world war, is not out of the question. And depending on what Putin does, and depending on what tactics Putin decides to take, the Western world may soon see itself entering into the war and putting boots on the ground. Now, the one big thing that has everyone worried, even bigger than a world war, is a nuclear war. Russia has nuclear weapons. And at the moment, Russia is in high alert when it comes to nuclear war or them setting off a nuclear weapon. And many countries, every single citizen across the globe, does not want that to happen. A nuclear war would be devastating for the entire globe. But with Putin deciding to put nuclear weapons into high alert, many people are worried about what actions the West should take, especially because it seems as though Putin is not afraid to go into a nuclear war. Now, while many people are talking about nuclear weapons being used in this scenario, it could be a tactic Putin is using to keep the Western world from putting boots on the ground. By scaring the Western world into thinking that he is not averse to using nuclear weapons, it could be one of the deterrents from keeping the United States, from keeping UK, from keeping the entire European Union from putting boots on the ground and helping on the ground fights. But again, it is something that the world, not just the Western world, not just Ukraine, the entire world has to deal with and make decisions very carefully, because it looks as though Putin is willing to do whatever it takes to return Russia to its Soviet glory. Now, again, many people are worried about this, but it could just be a tactic Russia is using at the moment to keep the Western world at bay. Wade says Putin will set off a dirty bomb in his country to force a world war. And you know what? I can agree with you there, Wade. At this moment, it seems as though Putin has one thing on his mind, and nothing can stop him from doing it. He has dreams and ambitions of returning Russia to its former Soviet glory. And he doesn't care who gets in his way. He's going to do it regardless. Whether that means setting off a dirty bomb like Wade's in his own country. Even at this moment in Russia, I believe about 5,000 protesters were arrested in Russia due to protesting against this war. Not even Russians are happy with the war happening in Ukraine at the moment. Even Putin's own citizens are not happy that they are attacking and bombing Ukraine. This is something that Putin is doing for his own legacy and for his own glory. The majority of the world is against Putin. His own citizens are against him in this war. Now, at this time, many people are worried about censorship as well, and they believe that Russia is in a position to begin censoring its own citizens. Now, Russia is a giant propaganda machine, and they will put out lies in order to try and push the narrative that they want to push. But again, we are in very, very dangerous territory at the moment. It seems as though nothing is going to stop Putin. Not sanctions, not an economic downturn, not being essentially having Russian banks being kicked off the SWIFT system, being blocked from the SWIFT system, not sanctions, not even Western boots on the ground. At this moment, while Russia is playing face, while Russia is trying to make it seem as though they are open to negotiations and talks, it really looks as though they're not. And Putin's only goal is to return to the former Soviet glory. At this time, it looks as though the war is going to continue on. And if the war does continue on, it's only a matter of time before the Western world starts putting boots on the ground. But at this moment, we have to wait and see what goes on. The first round of talks did happen. And both countries said that they are open to another round of talks. Many people are hoping that these negotiations will end with Russia having a ceasefire. But again, with what's going on, it doesn't necessarily look as though that is going to be the outcome. Ukrainian diplomats and Russian diplomats did speak today. But even while they spoke, even while they spent hours going back and forth, stating what they want, Russia still continued to bomb Ukraine, even as negotiations were happening. So at this time, prayers are with the people in Ukraine. This is a war crime. This is something that should not have happened. But again, Putin is after something that essentially is going to become unattainable. Russia will not go back to its former Soviet glory. Ukraine is an independent nation, and they're going to continue fighting the Russian troops in order to that they love. And while Russia thought they'd be able to come in and steamroll Ukraine, the Ukrainian troops are putting up one hell of a fight. They are defending their country. And they will continue to defend their country. And let's go ahead and go to the comments. Let's see. Excuse me, guys. The comments are not going up at the moment. I do apologize. I'm not sure what is going on. The comments are not going up. My name is Mel. I come live every single Monday through Wednesday to bring you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation as well. I will keep you updated, continuously updated about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. Again, prayers with the people of Ukraine. They're fighting hard. And again, eventually we're going to see more of a Western influence. I thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Mel. I come live every single Monday through Thursday. The comments are coming up now. So Wade says, I got $10 that says Putin disappears while walking down a dark alley, just saying, I don't think that's going to happen, Wade. So Jeffrey says, Russia is not bombing Ukraine. Russia is bombing Ukraine military forces and its Nazi militias. You're presenting the imperialist viewpoints of this on this conflict. Jeffrey, I'm going to have to completely disagree with you. Russia is bombing Ukraine at the moment. They are targeting military bases. And while their main targets are not necessarily civilian-held areas or mostly civilian areas, they are still attacking civilian areas. Many Ukrainians have died because of this bombing. Many civilians have died because of the bombing, including children. I believe the number of children that have died right now is 16. 16 children have died. Children have nothing to do with the military, but 16 children have died. So while you want to say that Russia is not bombing Ukraine, we have the footage from both the media and both from people on TikTok and various places where they're showing it in real time. We're seeing Ukrainians sheltering in place, using subway systems to shelter in place. Russia is bombing Ukraine. And while you may want to believe that they're only targeting military bases, it's not true. There's still casualties. There are still civilians that are dying. Over 500,000 refugees. Over 500,000 Ukrainian refugees have fled the country because their home is being bombed by Putin. So again, you can believe what you want to believe if you choose to want to believe that. But the evidence is right here in our faces. We are in a time where information moves faster than the speed of light, and we are watching it in real time. And to deny what is actually happening with the information right in our face being shown live is something that we can't do. The Ukrainian people essentially need our help. They're in a situation where they are in a war that they don't want to be in. They're being attacked. They're being invaded. They're being bombed by Russian troops. And no propaganda that Russia puts out can stop the people from knowing this. Even in Russia, the Russian people are protesting this. Russian nationals in Russia are being arrested because they are protesting this horrendous act. So again, you can believe the propaganda, but the information is right in front of our eyes. And again, it's being told by the media, but it's also being told. The stories are being told by the people who are right there. It's being shown on Facebook. It's being shown on Instagram. It's being shown on TikTok, not by a state media company, not by independent media companies, but by the people who are actually going through it. So again, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. Russia is invading, bombing, and attacking Ukraine. So Jeffrey also says Russia is taking great risks to avoid killing and wounding civilians, but they're still doing it. Civilians are still dead. Children are still dead. They're dead because they're bombing Ukraine. They are bombing. There was no reason for Russia to enter Ukraine. There was no reason for Russia to invade. But they chose to, and they are killing innocent people. Jeffrey also says over 500,000 Ukrainians may have fled from Ukraine, but that does not mean that Russia is attacking civilians. Russia is attacking civilians. They're bombing. They are bombing civilians. While their main target is military bases, they are still bombing civilians for no reason. There was no reason for Russia. There was no reason for Russia to invade Ukraine. This is a war crime. Civilians are dead. Children are dead. For no reason. Putin had no reason to go into Ukraine. He is causing death and destruction of people who did not want to be in war. This is a war crime. And then Jeffrey says, Mel, we're going to have to disagree about this entire conflict. And I know we are. And I'm going to continue talking about it. So I do know that we're going to continue going back and forth about this. But again, I wholeheartedly disagree. There's no reason for Putin to enter Ukraine. And at this time, I just view Putin as a war criminal who's causing death and destruction, who's causing the death of innocent civilians, not just military personnel. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Mel. I come live every single Monday through Wednesday to give you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation. I will see everyone tomorrow morning, bright and early. Have a great day, everybody. Let's see. One more comment. So Wade says, Jeffrey, you can do me a favor, pop your head out of your ass and watch the facts. So I think I'm going to read this one last comment before Wade and Jeffrey start going back and forth in the comments. Jeffrey says, Russia has legitimate reason to take military action. The biggest reason was that Ukraine military escalated criminal shelling of innocent civilians in Donbass about 6 days ago. They did not. But it's okay. Russian propaganda machine. But we will discuss this later because, again, we're probably going to be talking about this all week. Have a great day, everyone. Again, my name is Mel. I come live every single Monday through Wednesday to bring you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation as well. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a great day.